Break for it, and we are live. What's happening, wrestling fans? I'm Doug.
And I am Kevin. Doug, you're looking a little more animated than the last time we saw you.
Well, I'm sitting in a different spot in the house. Hopefully, I don't freeze up tonight.
I don't know, man. Our fans seem to like non-animated Doug. It was very popular.
Well, the energy's running low after a very rough work weekend, a very active weekend. So I may just fall asleep here shortly. So we better get into WrestleMania because we have 2 nights to cover, brother.
We do. It was a very active weekend for wrestling. It was WrestleMania weekend, biggest weekend of the year. Typically, we reserve this time before we get into the spoilers after a pay-per-view to say whether or not you should watch or not watch, or thumbs up or thumbs down. But, I mean, I don't know about you, Doug, but it's WrestleMania.
Exactly. It's WrestleMania. I mean, before we even get into spoilers and start covering things, it's WrestleMania. Of course you should watch it. Are there some things you could probably fast forward through if you're watching the replay? Yeah, there are a few things you can probably fast forward through, but there's some really great stuff that happened. So
if you're watching 2 old dudes sitting around talking about it, you probably are a wrestling fan enough that it's WrestleMania, good, bad, or indifferent. You have to watch WrestleMania. It's like you, Doug. Any sci-fi is worth watching, good, even bad sci-fi, right?
That's right. Bad sci-fi is better than no sci-fi.
But this wasn't bad. Let's without giving the before we get into the match by match what happened and what we liked and what we didn't. Last year there was some good moments. There were some people trying really hard in very bad circumstances, and we gave a lot of credit last year for the effort involved. But in our review last year, Doug, you and I both noted that I asked you, did it feel like a WrestleMania to you? And you said no, it didn't. I will say that with the set, the crowd, the pyro, it looked, sounded, and felt to me like a big event. It felt like WrestleMania. You?
It definitely felt like a big event. Although I have to ask, what's the point of having reduced capacity when you have fans sitting on top of each other, like the arena is packed full? And that's all I'll say about it. I'm not going to get into an old man pandemic rant, but spread those people out a little bit. Come on.
Some of those cardboard folks on the second level don't need those seats.
Right.
All right.
It absolutely felt like a WrestleMania. It was great to have fans back. It felt good.
It was the intangible that has been missing for the last year, quite honestly, that big feel that you just can't get through any other means you've tried.
No, I'm going to get froze up. Wait, okay. All right.
I see you, Doug. You're not frozen yet.
All right. I saw some bad things. What's happening?
Night one. We start off hot. Well, first, let me say this. We had 12 matches there was 14 total, 7 each night, 12 that we predicted. Doug, you and I both went 7-5. I was hopeful there till the end that I was going to end up beating you. That did not happen. But both of us had a better first night than we did second night. I will say that.
Yeah.
The only match we didn't call correctly on night one,
the opening match.
The opening match. So let's get to it. And yes, he's not catatonic yet, Dave, but you just keep hanging on because it's late. He might get catatonic on his own.
It's late. I'm already rambling, but let's talk about night one, man. They do open hot with Lashley and McIntyre. Did not expect that to open WrestleMania. Glad it did. It was a great match. At one point, one of the announcers is talking about 2 big bulls fighting. That's what we had here, man. The Almighty and the Chosen One going at it.
It immediately had a big fight feel to it. There was a legit "this is awesome" chant, and knowing that it was actually earned and not like being piped in just made it feel bigger. Drew did the Undertaker spot, the over-the-top rope senton spot, big man spot. I know we on this show, Doug, we love ourselves some technical wrestling. We love the high flying. We talk, I think a lot of times as a fan base, not just you and I, kind of detrimentally look at the big man style, the WWE main event style, as they call it,
Mhm.
for good reason a lot of times. But this was a good example of how two big men who can wrestle a big man style and still keep. There, you were catatonic for a second, Doug, but you're okay now. This match wowed Doug almost to the point of not knowing what to say.
It really was a great match. I am slightly disappointed with the ending. I really think Drew needed his WrestleMania moment with the crowd there. But, kudos to WWE for keeping the belt on Lashley. But why, if your intention was to keep the belt on Lashley, why do you break up the Hurt Business, which is probably the best thing that was happening on Raw?
Let me say this too in our defense. Um, in our defense, we picked this match thinking it was either going to be closing the show or at least very near the end of the show. As soon as I heard
Mm-hmm.
they were going to open with it, and this isn't just Monday morning quarterbacking, trying to backtrack on the fact I got it wrong. But as soon as I heard it was opening match, I'm like, well, now I think that Lashley's probably going to go over because they didn't want to save that to the
Okay.
end and send people home like unhappy. But the
Right.
match itself was great. Got things off to a good start. Uh, where Drew goes from here will be interesting, but yeah, still around Lashley's waist, and he's definitely a dominant looking champion. Great hot start to night one.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And the second match of night one was the women's tag team turmoil match. Honestly, this to me is a little revisionist history there, Dave.
Yeah.
But yeah, things I know, no matter what you booked in this spot, it was going to be the popcorn come down match for me. But to me, this was the worst match of night one.
Right.
Um, and it's hard to do, and nothing against the women involved. It's hard to do these kind of matches when you have so many moving parts and there's not a story really involved with the participants. There was also a peculiar amount of botches in this match. Lana throws a kick that, as a phantom kick, comes nowhere near hitting and still gets sold. Poor Mandy, because of the rain, slips and falls on her entrance. There was a couple of, I believe, wardrobe malfunctions that because the feed kind of went out. I think at times when it was starting to get a little inappropriate. The ring announcer, Greg Hamilton, called that the Riot Squad were eliminated when actually they got the pinfall at a certain point. I mean, beginning to end, the match was kind of a mess.
Yeah, I wasn't. I definitely was not a fan of the work and of this match altogether. I mean, it was what it was. I mean, it was there to just propel something in night two. Although I really did enjoy the Riot Squad Joker Harley Quinn look that they had going on. So big props to Ruby Riot and oh gosh, the other girl,
Live,
Liv. Thank.
live. Yeah.
It's late and I'm tired.
We get, the winners of this, though, we got the legacy team, and by legacy team, I mean the veterans that have the family history. Natalia and Tamina going on to the next night, and we'll get to that here in a bit. So next, Doug, we go to a match that you and I both thought could be a show stiller. It was a great match, not a show stiller, but it wasn't really booked to be, as in the fact that it could have gone longer for my taste. But what we
Yep.
got was fantastic, and uh, Dave, I know you're watching right now. I was gonna give you credit anyway as a frequent viewer, even if you weren't watching tonight. I was going to call out that you got this one right, and I'm happy you did. And that Doug and I got it wrong. I really thought the way that they booked Cesaro for all these many, many, many years that it was
Mhm.
just his consolation prize to be on the card and that Seth would go over. But I am so happy to be wrong
Me
and hope
too.
this means big things for maybe Cesaro for a big year upcoming. Doug, you think maybe?
I would love that. And let me just say, I think one of the most awesome looking things of night one or what WrestleMania Saturday was him countering that curb stomp into an uppercut. That was just beautiful the way that was executed.
Yeah, I had that on my notes too. That was probably my favorite move, maybe of the weekend.
Hmm.
There was the uppercut sequence he did in the corner too. That was fantastic. Of course, the spins. We all knew that it would happen, and he didn't disappoint with that. Honestly, to me, one of the best things about the match was with the ending,
Yeah,
uh, the legitimate emotion that was shown by Cesaro and the
right.
love that the fans gave him, where you realize that this is when wrestling is really, really good, when it's a tad real, and that moment was real,
When
and it was fantastic.
when you have the entire Raymond James stadium not at capacity, but sitting on top of each other, the folks that were there. When you have the entire Raymond James stadium sitting in the Cesaro section, that was very cool. Yeah, and
And
just the emotion on his face. Great, it was great, and I love the way it ended. So happy to be wrong.
David
And that's
Poole,
right. Cesaro needed a win. It was great. He got a win at WrestleMania, and it's not going to hurt Seth at all to put him over in that match.
100% correct there, Dave. We agree with you on that one. And that wouldn't surprise me, honestly, if Seth didn't even lobby for the ending to be the way it was, because Seth knows it isn't going to hurt him a bit either. And yeah, it'd be great if Cesaro goes on a singles run. But up to this point, that was one of maybe my favorite match. Might even have been better than the first match. But we get next into a match that does not qualify as that for me. It kind of went the way we thought it was going to, and that's the Raw Tag Team Championship match with the champions, the New Day, losing those belts to AJ and Omos. And in our preview show, Doug, we said that Omos probably wasn't going to do a whole lot and the other guys would work really hard.
Yep.
And that's what happened.
Yeah. So during this match, I fell asleep.
Would not be a surprise.
And so I'm going to blame it on trying to get 3 homes ready to move into and sell right now. So my weekends are full of a lot of activity. When I hunkered down to watch WrestleMania, this old man got a little tired, and I'm thinking this was probably the appropriate place. Maybe my body knew, okay, your brain can shut down for a little while right now.
I'm going to blame it not on the moving. I'm going to blame it on Omos. I knew we were in for trouble when before he even showed what he did or did not have in the ring. When Omos did not even know how to stand on the ring apron, I thought, we are in trouble. You're there. It's a tag rope. It means you hold the rope. The rope's on this side, so you hold the rope with this hand, and then you reach out with the other hand. So you got a guy who's like 9 feet tall. You got such a long wingspan. It should be easy to make a tag. He's barely putting his hand out, and it's the hand that is closest to the tag rope. So he's doing this across his body instead of reaching far out and not holding the tag rope at all. I thought, yeah, this guy's so green. No one's even told him how to stand yet. Fortunately, once he did get in the ring, the other guys just bounced off of him and made him look good. AJ Styles, of course, did a phenomenal forearm off of Omos's shoulders, which looked good. But for the most part, this was not anything to write home about. But you do have new tag team champions. At least AJ's there to do the work for Omos. They did a lot to make him look good. The camera angles, they made sure they got down low to make him look like a giant, and everyone sold for him. But okay, new guy, now you're the new big thing. Now you got to be able to back it up and perform. And I'm a little worried about whether or not that's going to happen.
Yeah, he's got AJ to help carry him through now that they are the tag team champions. So I mean, it's good to have him in a ring with a seasoned vet like AJ. So we'll see what happens here. But I don't have big expectations, especially since it couldn't keep this old man awake. I mean, we had the New Day and AJ Styles in there, and I fell asleep during this match. So
Yeah, this was the ebb and flow. This was the ebb for sure. Next was Shane in the steel cage match with Braun Strowman. Surprisingly, only the second steel cage match in the history of WrestleMania, which, considering there's 37 of them, is kind of hard to believe. We called this one correct as well, that Braun would get the victory, that Shane would jump off very high things, which, of course, he did. So this one went kind of how one would expect it to. And I kind of mean that for both better and worse. I mean, when you got Shane McMahon, you get two things. You have to suspend your disbelief in that a middle-aged non-athlete is going to be able to hold his own with an in-shape monster professional wrestler. And then two, to counteract that, there's going to be some crazy spectacle stunts that Shane will
Right.
do that will keep things visually interesting. And I have to say that I didn't hate this as much as I expected I would. Braun ripping the cage was a really cool spot. Shane being thrown from the top of the cage was a very dangerous looking spot. And so all told, it was kind of a wash. It wasn't a great match, but it actually was not bad for the amount of time it had taken, and the right man won, in my opinion.
So I woke up probably to see the end of this match, right? And Braun tearing the cage was a very cool spot, but I'm still really concerned, and I don't understand why. There was a giant toolbox on top of the cage. I don't particularly understand that. And that bump Shane took off the top. I mean, it's Shane. We expect that. Like you say, Shane's going to take his bump. We're going to get a coast to coast with Shane, which, we
Yep.
saw that. But yeah, I'm kind of just indifferent to this. It was what it was. What I saw of it, it may have been spectacular in the first half. I'm until I go back and watch the replay. I'm going to stick with it was what it was.
It was what it was, and Braun Strowman stands up for anyone who's ever been called stupid. So, congratulations, everyone out there watching. Next up, we have Miz and Morrison against Bad Bunny and Damian Priest, and we called correctly that celebrities always win these things. So, Bad Bunny and Damian Priest are your winners. Doug, last week in our preview show, I say we don't like. I realized looking back, I sort of argued it both ways. I don't like celebrities in my wrestling, but I understand why they do it, and I'm fine with it. Okay, to defend what I said, I really believe that yes, would I have preferred to see someone else in this spot? Would I have preferred to see some of the wrestlers left off WrestleMania have a storyline and pay off in a match? Absolutely. I think those criticisms are valid. I save that for the pre-show. When it comes to reviews, I think we just review what is there. What is there is that was entertaining as heck from beginning to end. Bad Bunny is a fan. He did his homework. He put the work in. And of course, Miz and Morrison did an amazing job to make him look great. But still, the dude wrestled 90% of the match. I thought he was going to be protected more and do a couple of spots. And guys out there in wrestling fantasy camp tearing it up.
So here's the thing. First of all, I want to see Pat McAfee and Bad Bunny form a tag team. I want to see that now. Celebrity tag team and take the belts and just run the division for a while. But beyond that, I think it's not bad booking, but it's the unintentional consequence of this was, you got Damian Priest there. We put him with Bad Bunny. He gets that rub. It brings in more eyes to the product, and you put Priest over. The guy that got put over in all this was Bad Bunny.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what people are going to be talking about. Come Monday, come Sunday morning on All Day Today, people are talking about Bad Bunny. Rolling through the week, people are going to be talking about Bad Bunny. Poor Punishment Martinez, Damian Priest was just kind of there. It was a vehicle for Bad Bunny, unintentionally, I'm sure. But I mean,
I don't know. I mean, if everyone's talking about it, that's exactly what WWE might want for those eyes that normally aren't on the product to hear that Bad Bunny did what, and let me check that out. He did. I mean, the entrance was fantastic, and the match was entertaining beginning to end, and may have produced my favorite comedy bit of the weekend too. Is Morrison looking at Miz after Bad Bunny pulled off something he shouldn't have been able to pull off, and him going, "Rabbits are lucky." That's awesome.
Rabbits are lucky. I love Canadian destroyers. My mind just melts every time I see one executed.
Never thought you'd see Bad Bunny executing one on the floor, did you?
I did not, but kudos
And
to
you're
Bad
right, David
Bunny.
Poole. If Springsteen's ever in a match, I would probably change my mind. But I did get Springsteen doing a song about professional wrestling, so my two worlds kind of collided once before. So that probably is as much as that's going to happen for me. But yeah, kudos to everyone involved for what they plan to do with this. I can't imagine that the people in the back, Bad Bunny's management, anyone looking at this thing from the outside could consider it anything other than overperforming for what expectations surely were.
Definitely a great match. But speaking of great matches, let us talk about what closed night one. Main event night one. My
I
goodness.
Yeah,
My goodness.
Sasha Banks against Bianca Belair. Bianca Belair is your new women's champion. I actually took less notes on this because I got so caught up in it. I just wrote down, scrawled history. I mean, you talk
Mm-hmm.
about big fight feel. I actually was a little concerned at the very start, not in a bad way. Well, the emotion that Bianca started when she started breaking down at the beginning of the match, and
And so did Sasha. If you go back
yeah,
and watch it, which I have, the replay on that one, Sasha breaks a little bit too. Not as
the,
much as Bianca, but Sasha breaks too, right
the
at the
roar of the
beginning.
crowd before they even touch,
Mm-hmm.
the fact that everyone involved and watching knew they were watching history. And I thought to myself, as amazing as this is, you got to pull it together, because if you don't stem the tide of those emotions, you could let it get
Yep.
away from you.
Yep. Yep.
And I thought, they're going to break down at the end of the match. They didn't break down at the end of the match, which
Mm-mm.
are more used to seeing. They broke down at first. They composed themselves. They took their breaths and then went into face
Boom.
mode
Yes.
and tore it up. Tore it
My
up.
goodness. Did somebody tell Bianca Belair it was Festivus? Because I saw an airing of grievances. I saw multiple feats of strength. Let me tell you.
Oh, the spot of her with the press coming up the stairs with
Yeah,
Sasha Banks.
my
Yeah,
goodness.
unbelievable. The braid, in a way, was the storyline of the match. Is it going to be a weapon for the champion, or is it going to be a weapon for the person whose head it is attached to?
Right?
I mean, and it ended up being the latter. That whip at the end literally brought blood from Sasha Banks' side. If you saw
Mm-hmm.
that. Honestly, folks, it's the first women's match to ever be one-on-one as a main event. It's the first time that two women of color would have been in a main event. I mean, there's so much uh, history riding on the match that it could have overwhelmed the match itself. That expectations would be so high that you could not possibly meet those expectations, and therefore people would be let down. That did not happen here, Doug.
It
Not at
did
all.
not. This was a amazing. Like even like you said, it takes you out of it a little bit. For all of us like old school marks that are want to believe that it's real. That for that minute, for those couple of seconds there, you're like, wait a minute, they realize it too. They get the importance of this. They bring it together though, and just from start to finish, I'll break the Meltzer scale on this one and say this was a 6-star match, man. I love this match. Definitely the match of the night. I'm going to say the
Oh,
match
yeah.
of the weekend for me. I don't know about you, brother.
I think so, just because you add in the added significance to it. But I will say this, and now I don't want to get ahead of myself. But it typically, I find that even if the main event is great, almost always you're going to see a match steal the show. And
Yep.
usually, the best match of Andre Hogan is memorable, but everybody knows that Ricky and Randy stole the show.
It
That
was just
almost
Mr.
happens.
People.
Yeah, it happens
Yeah.
most of the time. I will say, to me, both nights, the main event of the night was the match of the night.
Agree.
And I think
Agree.
in some ways they constructed the matches. Some of these matches I liked, I wish would have gone longer, and I think they intentionally had them go shorter. One, to make sure the show doesn't go 5-6 hours, but two, to make sure that the main event felt like the main event and
Yep.
didn't get stolen. But yeah, historic night one. Doug, let's talk about what we just saw.
My goodness. What did we just see? What did we just see? This first
Well,
man, what did we just see to open this, Kevin? I mean,
well,
I'm
if
glad.
night
I'm
one
glad.
started strong, night two was not that.
A few things I'm happy about with this first match with the Fiend and Orton. The Fiend regenerated back to the cool looking scary mask. We got away from we had just a tad bit of cinematic wrestling at the beginning where the Fiend completely regenerates from crispy Fiend into the Fiend we all know and love. We get Alexa Bliss to come out with the big crank and crank the Jack in the Box, and then our match starts, and it's a match of guys wrestling, and then Alexa Bliss ascends to, I don't know, this, the Onyx Witch. I'm not sure what she is now, with oil dripping from her head.
Whatever it
I don't know
was,
what happened.
the Fiend didn't care for it because he was very shocked, and it ended up being an RKO. And Doug and I getting this one wrong because we thought the Fiend would rebound, and instead it looks like maybe the end of things as far as the partnership between Bliss and Fiend. And to me, if it ends up being Alexa getting back into the ring and being a competitor, then all's well that ends well. But for those who have not liked this storyline from the get-go and all the supernatural natural elements, the best you could probably say about it is that at least it's over. I mean, truly, if night one got off to a great start, night two got off to a start where in 7 minutes people were going, "What the heck just happened?" and booing the finish of the first contest, which is not ideal to start your night two of WrestleMania. Had me worried for the whole night. Fortunately, things began to pick up almost immediately. But to me, this was probably the worst bit of business that WrestleMania put forth all weekend, and that includes that rather lackluster eliminator on night one.
Yeah, yeah. I was not a fan of this, but like you say, if it's over, so that's a
Yeah,
thing. Now we have Oil Can Alexa and the Fiend. They're going to feud. I'm not sure what's happening there.
uh, you are correct there, Dave. That was a lot of oil, and who knows what any of that is going to mean. And
I
in
don't
some
know.
ways, like, yeah, at least that is over. We go into a match next that I'm thinking, oh, now we're going into this. The women's tag match. I thought you're really going to go 0 for 2 to start the night, and night one's going to just run away with this one. I will say I was actually surprised that this match ended up being a lot better than I thought it had any reason to be. You had the Raw Tag Team Champions retaining with Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler beating the winners of the Eliminator for the night before, Natalia and Tamina. Doug, the fans were into this, which I thought was actually kind of interesting too, because I really just thought that this was going to, particularly after the flat finish of the first match, this was going to keep the crowd dead. They came alive during this and got behind Tamina, a person that Vince and WWE has never gotten behind and never done anything of significance with, and the fans wanted to see her win.
I was watching this and I was thinking, Tamina's that person you go to, or Vince goes to, or the powers that be go to in WWE and say, we need X, Y, and Z done. And she's like, okay, I got you. You need the powerhouse. I got you. You need me to back somebody up. You need me to be the diesel to somebody's, Shawn Michaels. I got you. Whatever you need, throw me in it. I'll take care of it. I'll do it. And then she's kind of almost discarded, really.
And
But
yeah,
I mean, in the end, it didn't really work. But fans were behind her.
yeah, I really wanted to see her hit that super flash splash because I thought that was cool. I like the slingshot into the super kick. I mean, this match ended up being better than I expected. But Tamina's, other than Natalia, is the longest serving female on the roster. Been there
Yep.
over 10 years, never had a title at all. Still doesn't, but but at
Still,
least she got the moment. All right, and the crowd really wanted her to have it. And speaking of something that the crowd really wanted, Doug, the crowd really wanted this next match.
yes, yes. Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, yeah, Steen, El Generico. These two can fight forever, and I'm going to watch every time.
Yeah.
I
And
mean,
and we know that these guys have had better matches,
yeah.
undoubtedly. However, no matter what you put these two together, you're going to get at least an average to above average to a really good match, no matter what. they did this for years in little tiny high school gyms.
Mm-hmm.
To be fans of both men and see them do this at WrestleMania and the crowd be so into them doing this at WrestleMania, it made me feel great for them. I could have had it go longer, which is something that I'm going to be saying a lot for the rest of these. But I understand that they were trying to limit the length of the show, which I appreciate. I am happy that the any theatrics that we expected from Logan Paul getting involved did not happen
Mm-hmm.
during the match. I got this one right, Doug. You called it the Sammy way. No matter what, we both won with this one. Everybody wins with this one. Great match, and we got once Paul did get involved, Kevin Owens got to have his Stone Cold Steve Austin WrestleMania moment by
Yep.
just handing out stunners to everybody, which was awesome.
And that's exactly what I was thinking. That here's Owens with his just handing out the stunner. So
And the fans really wanted that too, because I don't
yes,
think,
they
even though
did.
there's 23 million people apparently subscribed to Logan Paul, I don't know why most of you all aren't not subscribed to Two Bros, and 23 million of you go subscribe to Logan Paul, but there weren't many of those 23 million in that crowd tonight. It didn't seem.
Apparently not. Apparently, there are a lot of boos coming from the crowd. But yeah, and I'm not sure.
Maybe they hate subscribe. Maybe people just hate subscribe to him.
Well, wasn't it Corey Graves that said something along the lines of he wanted to sub to his YouTube just so he could unsubscribe?
If it means us being heels, if it gets you to subscribe, we'll be heels. You can watch us and hate us if you want. Just like and subscribe.
Yeah, really.
Uh,
Oh my goodness. So next
next,
we had
yeah,
our
good
Sheamus
stuff.
Riddle match. Oh, my goodness.
Champion, U.S. champion Riddle taking on Sheamus. Doug, we have called
Bro,
this one wrong, which
bro.
surprised me, bro. I mean, he didn't have that belt for very long, but dude, hard hits, like extremely hard hits. I know Sheamus likes to work stiff. Matt Riddle used to be a UFC guy.
Right,
So they basically just went out there and said, just hit me. There
right.
was parts of this that looked so real, probably the most real looking offense that was given this weekend. It reminded me in that way a little more of what Ciampa and Walter did against each other on NXT. I mean, they just sat around and smacked each other. That finish, dude, that great finish with the brogue kick while Matt Riddle is upside down, literally, I mean, busted him open real good, got him a stiff kick in the mouth.
Mm-hmm.
These guys worked hard. It's a shame there was a botch spot of the white noise from the top rope that would have been a great, believable near fall. They had to sort of work on the fly from that one. It did not detract, though, from the effort put forth by both men. I love this one, Doug.
So, at the end of the day, I hate to see Riddle lose, but I do wonder since he has now dropped the belt and he's dropped the mid card title here, if that points to bigger, better things for Riddle when we get our WrestleMania reset tomorrow night and going forward for the next basically wrestling year. I wonder if he's moving on up into like the main event game now.
I mean, I would be very fine for it.
Yes.
I'm surprised to see Sheamus walk away, but maybe that's Sheamus's consolation prize for the work he's done with Drew to keep Drew warmed up these last couple of months, keep Drew relevant. Um, Obviously, Riddle is too young and too new to fade into the background, so I'm interested, like you, to see where he goes from this. But the contest itself, despite a couple of sloppy moments, it's honestly what you get when you got guys that are really out there looking to the best of their abilities, like they're truly fighting one another.
Yeah. Yeah. So moving on to this next one, this Apollo Crews Big E. Yeah, I'd watched some things here and there this weekend talking about how apparently even WWE Creative didn't know what a Nigerian drum battle or drum fight was. Apparently they landed on, it's a no DQ match with
Yeah,
drums set up
with
around.
drums around the ring. Yeah,
Yeah.
obviously that wasn't necessary.
I've got to say, I'm a little disappointed that it wasn't a cinematic match where we had something like, from Wakanda where we have, Warrior Falls action. I'm disappointed in that.
Although definitely both men had their best superhero gear on, they both looked
Yeah.
like they were ready to be fighting there in Wakanda or in a Marvel film somewhere.
And,
Um,
and just listening to Apollo Crews tonight, I'm wondering if he's trying to channel a Chadwick Boseman because that seems like a Wakandan accent he's trying to push. That
Yeah,
he's
I'm still not sure about the accent, but I'm definitely sure about Apollo himself. And I just thought there's no way that we could keep having this program go on and be
right.
so one-sided. Like,
Hmm.
he has to get his win, and we both agreed with that on our pre-show. We called this one correct that Apollo would walk away with the championship. He did. I think that's probably the right call. As much as I love Big E, I think Big E is destined for bigger things.
Yeah.
Um, what we got was a pretty intense brawl while it happened. It was, again, like a lot of these matches tonight, probably too short. And then, of course, there
Mhm.
was the outside interference.
Shenanigans.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, which, that you introduce new talent and new people at WrestleMania. I get it. Obviously, despite the announcers acting as if this guy is new, what I had to look up his name because I couldn't remember it. It is Dabakato,
Yeah.
who was big on Raw Underground. As short-lived as it was, actually was enough that he got drafted. He actually was part of the draft, and the announcers are acting like they'd never seen him before. He might
I
be.
had a huge problem with that too because I'm like, what? I, I mean, I get it. It's wrestling. It's professional wrestling. We're going to make it up on the fly sometimes, and I mean, we had like supernatural oil can leakage earlier, whatever that was. So why is everybody pretending that this guy is brand new? I didn't get it either, but it was like, oh, whatever. It's wrestling. Let's
Dave
just roll with it.
Dave agrees with us there too. That I'm sure that this is Vince McMahon producing the commentary team to have them erase their memories, because it is quite likely that he might even have a new name. I mean, we might
That's
not even
true.
be referring to him that as that anymore. So it's like never happened. But I would have liked to seen this go on a little longer, but I am happy to see that the match itself occurred. The Big E got to perform in front of his hometown crowd of Tampa, and Apollo Crews got a significant victory.
Yep. And speaking of significant victories, let's talk about this next match, Kevin.
I got this one wrong. You got it right.
Um, Rhea Ripley, it's definitely her time.
Yeah,
Definitely her time. And this just signals how much, they have faith they have in her, calling her up finally from NXT after not really a botch from last year, but what could have definitely been her time from last year, with her match with Charlotte. I can't help but shake the feeling that this should have been Charlotte v. Asuka, and I don't know what's happened there. If she's still
I mean,
recovering from
yeah,
COVID,
originally it was supposed to be,
yeah,
and then it just kind of got derailed. COVID protocols kind of kept her from being around on a few Raws. Right at the last minute, you couldn't have, not have that match announced, not knowing if it would happen or not. So, I mean, honestly, we all love Charlotte. Charlotte's fantastic, but I don't think she could have done a better job. She might have done as good a job, but Rhea Ripley looked great out there tonight. She looked like she belonged in a match with Asuka, and
yes, she did.
that DDT to the floor, dude. That DDT to the floor.
Yes, yes, yeah.
Yeah,
That it seemed that Riptide just seemed to come from out of nowhere, and just boom, the match was over. It's like wait, but like you've always said, the announcers will always telegraph the kick out and spoil the ending. I'm like, okay, that happened too quick. Oscar's oh nope, nobody's saying that Ripley's gonna win. This is it, and it was for sure. Ripley comes out with the W.
and with a new lady at the top of the division, one who hasn't even been around very long on Raw. There's a lot, as you said. The new season starts tomorrow night. The wrestling season begins tomorrow anew, and there is a whole lot of matchups we have yet to see that are now match possibilities with Rhea Ripley as your chief. with some going forward. And Doug, okay, you just said froze there for a second in a very comical position, but you're back with us now. You're back with us in order to talk about the main event of night 2. And honestly, depending on how you want to rank it, 1 or 2 in my mind, match of the weekend. You called this one right. I called this one wrong. Vince deciding that he was okay with sending fans home unhappy because the fans really hated Roman Reigns, which was awesome because that's the reaction you want when you're a heel.
Yes.
And it's not the old Roman Reigns like you're trying to be a good guy and we're telling you, go away, heat. We hate you. This was legitimate earned heat.
Legit heel heat, and I love that, man. Everything about this from start to finish, just like the main event from night 1, I loved this match. And you said it earlier, we're big on the technical wrestling, the high flying, the big spots. This was a very psychological match. This was great storytelling. This match was just great. It had a lot of good teases in it. And let's talk about that double crossface near the end of the match, where Reigns is going to tap out because Edge has him in a crossface using a piece of the steel chair in his mouth. Reigns goes down to tap. Daniel Bryan comes out of nowhere, grabs his hand, puts him in a crossface on the other side.
You got a crossface and a yes lock going at the same time. And then when they both realize that they're both maybe, in position where he might tap out, they start headbutting one another while they're in that move. And poor Roman sitting there with a piece of steel between his teeth, which couldn't have been comfortable while they were, jostling around. That looked fantastic. I also love the great spot where Roman Reigns stood up on the chair on the stairs and put Daniel Bryan through a table, and as soon as he turned around to celebrate, here comes Edge in midair with a spear taking him down. That spot looked cool. It was just great. Obviously, you can do a lot with 3 men to make it never have a slow moment of rest. And they kept up a great pace, incredible intensity, incredible heat from this crowd. If you noticed, the crowd was standing during the introductions, and they never sat down. The only time it happened all weekend that I saw that the crowd remained standing for the entire contest. They were that into it. I think they had the best near falls of the weekend. There were a lot of moments that I thought that it was it and that it actually was not it. So they teased it all out really well. And even though I thought that, WrestleMania fans for the first time, you're going to be sent home happy. I'm not sad that Roman Reigns remains your champion because Roman Reigns is a great champion. I love that he would not. I loved your tribal chief was not going to be satisfied pinning one or the other. He wanted to make sure that neither of them had a claim to say, no, you'd never beat me. He made sure he pinned them both. That is a big statement victory right there when you pin them both.
That and the way he stacks them. I'm going to go back. I'll have to rewatch this, but I'm pretty sure the way he stacks them, both their shoulders are actually on the mat. So there's none of those wacky WWE shenanigans of well, you pinned you pinned me, but Daniel Bryan was on the bottom, and then there was a 3 count where I was on top of Daniel Bryan. Both their shoulders, the way he stacks them, are on the mat. I'm pretty sure. I'll have to go back and watch again, but yeah, and I also want to mention just the kinetic cuts that just I think really enhance this match. Usually, a lot of times, or especially on Raw, it gets really jerky and really disorienting with some of the cuts. But the cuts in this match for the camera work and the editing, in the live truck were just great because they're cut camera to camera to camera, almost on with kicks or with hits and everything. It was just very great and really enhanced what was going on in the ring tonight, and outside of the ring actually.
And all of that would have not looked as big time. It would not have looked as WrestleMania. Would not have without that crowd, a stadium. I mean, I can't say enough about how after a year of everyone doing their best and no crowds, some crowds, virtual crowds. I mean, we've tried everything, and to some extent, piping in noise, all of it helps. Nothing felt as good as sitting down this weekend and hearing the roar of the crowd, hearing the crowd boo the finish to the Orton match because, hey, we don't like this.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of the way that would normally have been post-produced to make it seem like it was the greatest thing ever. I mean, you got a legitimate, this is awesome chance. You had people so excited to be at a WrestleMania, seeing this great main event tonight, standing throughout the entire match, refusing to
Yes,
sit down because they were so excited. That kind of stuff is infectious. It comes across in the broadcast to those of us watching at home. It felt like Mania weekend, and yeah, there's definitely some things you could skip, but overall, I say that this was a very successful couple of nights for WWE. Some very significant wins for statement wins for your
mm-hmm.
Cesaros, your Bianca Belair, your Apollo Crews, your Rhea Ripley's. There was some real passing of the torches, I do believe, this weekend, and it was good. Good show.
Absolutely.
Dougie, what do you think about WrestleMania being 2 nights? You
You
like
know,
it? You don't like it?
I do like 2 nights because I think back just a few years ago when we had like what 6 or 8 hours of programming for on a WrestleMania, and it was treated more like a Super Bowl Sunday where coverage starts at noon and pretty much ends at midnight. We've got like 12 hours, maybe like 6 or 8 of actual wrestling, but just coverage throughout the day, which can be exhausting. And that's a lot of fan fatigue too for this, especially for the people in the stadium. I like how it's broken up like this, and I would not at all have a problem with this going forward and continuing with this. I think it works out really well.
I did notice that when they talked about the WrestleMania next year in Dallas, they said April 2022. They had already previously announced the dates for when they announced that WrestleMania this year was going to be 2 nights and actually have fans. They went ahead and also announced that Texas was having it next year and LA was having it the year after that. They announced the dates. However, during the broadcast this weekend, they just were saying April, which made me think, are they backing off from the one date that they gave it because they only gave
Right.
it one night and the one in LA 2 years from now, one night? But do
Mm-hmm.
they realize there's an advantage in having a couple 3.5 hour shows as opposed to keeping people there all day? Obviously, they can sell more tickets, make more money. There's downside. If you're going to try to fill a 120,000 seat stadium like they will be doing in Dallas, you may not be able to do that twice when you don't have social distancing and limited number of tickets. I also understand that there's something special about it's WrestleMania Sunday, like it is Super Bowl. It's one day a year. But yeah, I'm a baseball fan. I'm not a football fan. I'm a baseball fan. World Series can take seven games. So hey, you want to have multiple nights? I'm fine for it. If it means that you had a historic match a couple of years ago where the first time ever that women were allowed to main event, and by the time they came on, the crowd did not react to them the way that they deserved because
Mm-hmm.
they literally went on the next day.
Yeah.
People who had been there since 4 in the afternoon did not see that main event start till after midnight. The
Right.
crowd was you've killed the crowd. I thought these last 2 nights the crowd was hot, not just because they hadn't been out of the house in a year. I
Right.
think they were hot because they were only expected to be there 3.5, 4 hours instead of 8 hours.
I agree. I would like to see multiple days. And we were joking about it last week about how much wrestling there was through the week, but I like the week of WrestleMania. I think this WrestleMania overall could have had a much better build starting back in January, but I mean, it doesn't matter. It's come and gone at this point, and I'm not left disappointed after WrestleMania weekend. But I like the idea of that WrestleMania week that really doesn't end until tomorrow when Raw goes off the air, because Raw is it's kind of like Spider-Man, what it says, the Spider-Man 2, where we have the reset. It ends a phase and begins a new phase.
Which is fantastic. And David, I'm with you too. That that Stand and Deliver was top to bottom fantastic. Also 2 nights this year. But to Doug's point, all that stretches into an entire week.
Hmm.
I've always liked Mania because yes, Mania obviously is the Super Bowl of wrestling, but I like that NXT had their big event right next to WrestleMania, and we get the Hall of Fame ceremony. And you want to add a couple extra nights of both WrestleMania and NXT, and not keep a dead crowd, but still be able to put on 14 matches. and
Mm-hmm.
just don't do them all on one day. I think everyone had a little bit more time to shine. So I'm with you. I kind of like the format, and there's give and take. Again, you might have to go to some smaller venues if you think you're going to, try to
Right.
sell that many tickets 2 nights in a row. And maybe it loses a little bit of the specialness of it only happens one day a year. But hey, I think if it means that the crowd stays hot and more people get featured, then kudos. I'm all for it.
Agreed, and I agree. And haven't said. Well, it's cool that Dave. It is cool that you have watched us instead of watching the Stone Cold Jericho interview.
Yeah.
But since it's basically AEW, I related. I'm going to say I'm sure it was awesome.
And I'm sure we're going to have a lot to say about that on our show next week, folks. If you have joined us for the first time, this is the Two Bros Wrestling Show. We've been reviewing WrestleMania. Typically, if it's not a pay-per-view night, we're on 8 o'clock every Sunday live. Doug, we're back next week, next Sunday at 8. What are we talking about?
I don't know.
I gave Doug choices, and I'm putting him on the spot because I knew he would.
I,
It's going to be something cool. We got a lot of cool things we could possibly talk about. We're going to talk about something cool next week at 8 o'clock. It's going to be wrestling.
it's going to be wrestling, so obviously it's going to be cool. But with that, I think we can wrap tonight because this old man is tired. And it's after midnight. So thanks for staying up late with us. Thanks for, watching the replay of this if you're not catching it live. Dave Poole, thank you for coming in and hanging out with us, being our third
Always,
man on the show
always, brother.
tonight as always, brother. Until next time, folks, I've been Doug.
I've been Kevin.
And, oh no, still frame me again. Oh no.
We're over still frame Doug back. Tune in next week. We might just have a picture of Doug up here. You never know.
Good night, everybody.